My fiancée, Isabel, wanted me to take the fall for Julian. He'd killed a pedestrian in a hit and run, and she thought I should do his time. This wasn't some sappy romance novel. I let her have it. She was unmoved. It's just a few years in prison, Leo. You're used to the gutter. It's nothing to you. But Julian's future can't have a stain like this. When I refused, she snapped her fingers. 3 of her bodyguards stepped forward, each one built like a brick shithouse, their faces set in grim lines. Across the dinner table, my parents stared down at their plates, their silence a clear sign of their consent. A minute later, I was on the floor, spitting a mouthful of blood onto their polished hardwood. My gaze traveled over the bruised knuckles of the bodyguards to meet Isabel's cold, indifferent stare. I managed a weak smile. Sloppy work, I coughed. Lost by a hair. Julian, who'd been hiding behind Isabel the whole time, stepped forward with a phony, sympathetic smile. Leo, man, I'll never forget this. You're a real brother. I crooked a finger, beckoning him closer. He leaned down. Arg. A steak knife was now buried in his eye socket. He clutched his face, his scream echoing through the cavernous dining room as he collapsed, writhing in agony on the floor. I burst out laughing, my wild eyes locking with my stunned parents and my speechless fiancée. I'm not beneath any of you. I roar, my voice raw, and nobody gets to push me around. I got 5 years for aggravated assault. Not long after I went inside, I met this strange old-timer. He handed me a beat-up paperback, his lips pulling back to reveal a row of yellow teeth. Kid, I can tell you've got good bones. Ever think about taking up a real trade? I glanced down at the cover. A few bold words stared back at me. The chill burn technique. 2 years later, I was out on parole for good behavior. The warden's office had notified my family. Isabel was waiting for me outside the prison gates. She wore a flowing white dress, her long hair pulled back, looking every bit the elegant, untouchable swan. I, in my prison-issued sweats, was the ugly duckling they tried to drown. She looked me over, her eyes as cool and distant as ever. When we get home, you'll apologize to Julian. After that, I'll announce our engagement. I kept up with the news inside. I knew the Sterling and Vance families were on the verge of a merger, with several joint ventures in the works. Announcing the union of their 2 families would be a huge boost to their stock price. Still, not even a dog would marry this woman. I smoothed the wrinkles on my shirt, a faint, ironic smile playing on my lips. Marry an ex-con? What about your pristine reputation, Isabel? The merger is happening. This marriage is non-negotiable. I don't have a choice, she said, her expression tinged with a helplessness that didn't quite seem genuine. As if she wasn't entirely opposed to the idea. Could she actually have feelings for me? I shook my head, dismissing the ridiculous thought. She probably just figured I was a better option than the adopted son, Julian. He wasn't a true Sterling, so there was no guarantee he'd inherit the family empire. Besides, Isabel would never marry a one-eyed man. I was the Sterling's long-lost son, found and brought back 3 years ago. I thought I was finally getting a real family, a happy life. Instead, I found that Julian had completely replaced me. The 20-plus years of affection they had for him easily outweighed any biological tie to me. I'd grown up in the slums of the city's industrial district. I was oil to their water. My father, Robert, found my very existence an embarrassment that needed to be managed and disciplined. My mother, Eleanor, would preach about loving us both equally, then showered Julian with affection while finding new ways to humiliate me. My older sister, Megan, cared only for the family business. She barely acknowledged my existence. And Isabel, she and Julian had grown up together, practically soulmates. The first time I met her, I was completely captivated. I did everything I could to be near her, to win her over. But for Isabel, I, her actual fiancé, was nothing more than an object of contempt. Her demand that I go to prison for Julian was the cold slap of water that finally woke me up. Now, looking at her, I felt nothing. I have no relationship with the Sterlings, I said flatly. And I'm not marrying you. My refusal was a command. She gestured, and the 3 bodyguards stepped forward again. We'd had this dance before. They were her personal security detail. Back when I was still trying to win her over, I'd show up at her family's company headquarters, and she'd have them throw me out. It was always 3-on-1, and I'd always lose by a hair. This time, let's see how it goes. I moved first, my palm striking one of the men square in the chest. Thump! A dull impact, followed by a searing, fiery pain that spread through his torso. In the same motion, I swept my leg low. He froze, his eyes bulging as a paralyzing cold shot through his lower body. The clash of sensations, a burning heat and a penetrating chill, was unbearable. He let out a strangled cry. What the hell was that? Chill burn, I said, my voice empty. He crumpled to the ground, foam bubbling at his lips. A few seconds later, the other two were down beside him. As Isabel stared in utter disbelief, I turned and walked away alone. The Gilded Lotus, Riverton's most exclusive wellness spa, was my destination. I was there to find Pops, the strange old man from prison, who'd gotten out a few months before me. He was the owner. Pops flashed a grin, his voice a gravelly rasp from a lifetime of cheap cigars. Good to have you out, kid. Now the real work begins. The story was that Pops had been a formidable boxer in his youth, making a lot of enemies along the way. As he got older, younger fighters started showing up at his gym to challenge him. He lost too many times, his reputation soured, and the gym went under. He pivoted to opening a high-end massage parlor, which, against all odds, became a massive success and a Riverton institution. But Pops was never happy. His dream was still to run a boxing gym. After years of tinkering, he'd managed to combine his family's fighting style with principles of deep tissue massage, creating a new method he called chill burn. He told me I was a natural, the greatest fighter he'd ever seen. The only man to have ever mastered the chill burn technique. The day I perfected the technique, an inmate a few cells down suddenly collapsed, convulsing on the floor. I alerted the guards, saved the man's life, and got a commendation. From then on, strange things kept happening around me. An inmate would go berserk and start brawl, and I'd be the one to restrain him. Another would try to hang himself, but not before calling me over to be his witness. Of course, I'd save him, report it, and get another commendation. In less than 6 months, I'd saved nearly 100 people. The prison administration hailed me as a model inmate and fast-tracked my parole. Unofficially, the other inmates complained I was a jinx, that trouble followed me everywhere, and they wanted me gone. The parole board's vote was unanimous. Of course, I knew it was all Pop's doing. He ran that prison with more authority than the warden, with a private cell, personal masseurs, and, unbelievably, a smartphone. As for me being a natural, give me a break. He spent all day binge-watching fantasy shows and reading pulpy sci-fi novels. His speech was full of dramatic flair. I wasn't falling for that. But one thing he said was true. I was now the strongest fighter in Riverton. Unbeatable. Pops taught me to fight and pulled strings to get me out early for one reason: to help him conquer Riverton's underground fight scene. Once I built up a name, he'd relaunch his boxing gym. To celebrate my release, Pops booked a private room at a high-end steakhouse. After dinner, he'd thoughtfully arrange for one of his spa's premium technicians to give me a private massage. Her name was Chloe. She had soft eyes, delicate features, and a stunning figure. She was an expert at her craft, no doubt about it. But behind her professional smile, I saw a flicker of something cold and brittle. A flame of vengeance ignited inside me. She was one of my enemies. Sensing my stare, Chloe looked at me a little more closely. You look really familiar. Have we met somewhere before? She didn't recognize me. She probably never even gave me a second thought back then. That year, her boyfriend had tormented me, and later, he'd hurt the person I cherished most, leading to an irreversible tragedy. I pushed the thoughts away and changed the subject. Why'd you get into this line of work? Chloe gave a bitter laugh, explaining that college wasn't for her and factory work was too hard. Don't look down on me, though, she added. A premium tech can clear 10 grand a month. I nodded. Why not find a guy? Someone to support you. Support? She scoffed. I have a boyfriend, but he's a loser. Barely makes any money, but he's got a hell of a temper. She pulled down the collar of her uniform, revealing a dark, ugly bruise on her chest. It looked like the imprint of a shoe. He hit you. He kicked me. Chloe said he drank too much, and when he was drunk, he got violent. The more pathetic her story sounded, the more pleasure I felt. How long have you two been together? A few years. We met in college. He was my first love. A jolt went through me. It was him, the bastard. Perhaps dredging up the past made her emotional. Chloe slowly leaned her head against my shoulder, her hair cascading down, smelling faintly of jasmine. If he was half the man you are, my life wouldn't be so hard. Oh, and what do you know about me? I asked, curious. You're the one Pops chose. That means you're special. Chloe knew more about Pop's past than I did. Turns out, he'd been a heavy hitter for the local mob before going straight. Even after his gym was forced to close, he never used his old connections to get revenge. He was, in his own way, an honorable man. For the last few years, Pops has been traveling all over, scouting for talent. He even did a stint in prison just to find an apprentice. I was stunned. So he got himself locked up just to find me? Chloe nodded. Pops is a man with a dream. I was speechless. What about you, handsome? Chloe's breath was warm against my neck, her eyes mesmerizing. What kind of man are you? I'm a man, I said, my arm wrapping around her waist as I pulled her down on top of me. Back at the Sterling mansion, Robert was furious when he heard I was cutting ties. That ungrateful brat. He has no sense of family loyalty. Eleanor, my mother, was even more venomous. That animal hurt Julian so badly, and he has the nerve to hold a grudge against us. Robert, just let him rot out there. Robert looked at his wife and sighed. He's still our blood, Eleanor. The family needs him. Julian can do everything he can, she shot back. Julian is blind in one eye. Do you really think Isabel's family will let her marry him now? You go ask them. Eleanor fell silent, her resentment for me deepening. Robert rubbed his temples and called for his daughter, Megan. Go find your brother. Tell him we're throwing a family dinner to welcome him home. Tell him to stop this childish nonsense. This was the first time Megan had ever sought me out. With the Sterling's resources, finding me at the spa was easy. My sister, who looked so much like me, was an expert at masking her emotions. The only time she ever showed a hint of a smile was when she was looking at Julian. But what she valued most was the family business. She believed everyone should sacrifice unconditionally for the company. I suspected she'd end up sacrificing her entire life to it. 2 years away had hardened me, built muscle on my frame. Megan seemed almost pleased by the change. This was what Sterling blood should look like. Father has arranged a welcome home dinner. Isabel will be there, she said coolly. Hilarious. A welcome home party for an ex-con. I sneered. I thought you were all such classy, high society people. I thought you looked down on trash like me. Megan, I'm done with you people. I don't recognize you as my family. You get it? Megan pointed out that she hadn't been there the day they tried to force me to take the fall. You being there or not wouldn't have changed a damn thing, I said with disgust. Her tone shifted. The company just acquired that parcel of land out by the old factory district. The grind. My blood ran cold. That was where I used to live. The place that held my most precious memories. What are you planning to do with it? Megan didn't answer directly, only saying there were no immediate plans for redevelopment. The implication was clear. My cooperation would determine its fate. I was silent for a long time. Finally, I agreed to go home. Stepping back into the Sterling mansion felt like entering a foreign country. The opulent decor was just as alienating as I remembered. At the long rectangular dining table, the whole family stared at me like I was an intruder. You're back. Good. Sit, Robert said, gesturing to the empty seat next to Isabel. Julian's face was a mask of fury. In 2 years, he'd grown his hair out, with long bangs deliberately covering his ruined eye. He looked androgynous and pathetic. I couldn't help but let out a short, sharp laugh, which seemed to strike a nerve. He's an ex-con, Julian snapped. He doesn't deserve to sit next to Isabel. I don't, I agreed. But a one-eyed cripple sure as hell doesn't either. Clang, Julian slammed his silverware down and yelled for a servant to throw me out. This time, Isabel said nothing. Her expression just grew colder. Megan shot me a warning glance before turning to tell Julian to calm down. Robert's voice boomed across the table, ordering Julian to show some restraint. Why is everyone blaming me? He's the one who stabbed me in the eye. Julian shrieked. I shrugged, feigning confusion. I already did the time. Why can't you be the bigger person? Bigger person my ass. See? I said, turning to my mother. He's even swearing at you now. Eleanor's brow furrowed, her pupils shrinking into 2 points of black fire. I knew she was about to explode, so I cut her off. You're just the adopted son, I declared, my voice ringing through the room. Once these two kick the bucket, I'm the sole heir to the Sterling fortune. And the first thing I'll do is throw you out on the street. My declaration of dominance hit its mark. Julian's good. I turned red. He grabbed Eleanor's arm and started to sob like a child. Mom, are you really going to let him bully me like this? Eleanor wrapped her arms around him protectively, glaring at me like an enraged mother hen. You monster. Wasn't it enough that you maimed him? Why are you so vicious? Isabel stood up, pointing a finger at me. Even if we get married, Julian will always be my brother. I will protect him. I laughed. Don't you get it? Marrying me is the cruelest thing you could do to him. This adopted son of yours is in love with you. How do you think he'll feel when you're in my bed, having my children? Megan shot to her feet, cutting me off. Leo, that's enough. We are a family. I wag my finger. You never treated me like family before. I'm just returning the favor. Perhaps my 2 years away had made them forget who I really was. They didn't seem to recognize the person in front of them. The truth was, I'd always been this way. I'd just been blinded by a pretty face for a while. Now, Megan's face was grim, Isabel's gaze was a swirl of conflicting emotions, and Robert's brow was deeply furrowed in silent thought. Only Eleanor was still screeching. Get out. I don't recognize you as my son. From now on, Julian is my only son. Guess I won't be staying for dinner then, I said. I ripped a roasted chicken leg from the platter on the table and gnawed it clean. Then I tossed the bone into the trash can. The thud it made felt like a final goodbye. Everyone's expression was a mix of shock and anger. Only Julian's face was twisted in a mask of pure, unadulterated hatred. The grind was what they called the blighted neighborhood of decaying tenements and abandoned warehouses on the edge of the city. It used to be bustling with temp workers from the nearby factories. After the factories relocated, it became a ghost town. On a small hill behind the grind stood a simple, weathered wooden cross. Beneath it lay the woman who had saved my life, the woman to whom I owed everything. Her name was Clara. As far back as I can remember, it was just me and Clara. She was 3 years older than me, also an orphan. The story was that her parents, who were desperate for a son, had secretly abandoned her when she was born. Clara survived by collecting cans and scrap metal, raising herself, and somehow me too. When she was old enough, she got a job as a package courier. It was enough to put me through school. I couldn't stand to see her work so hard, so I told her I wanted to drop out. I want to get a job too. It would be easier for you. But Clara refused. She told me I had to get an education, that without it, I'd never make real money. It didn't make sense to me. She was making over $5,000 a month. She'd tell me stories about people who studied hard, got into good careers, and made tens of thousands a month. So if you want to make my life easier, she'd said, you'll work hard and get into college. I nodded and promised I would. I managed to get into a local university in Riverton. It was a third-rate school, mostly known as a place for rich kids to buy a degree, but I chose it so I wouldn't have to be apart from Clara. It was a mistake. A couple of frat boy assholes targeted me right away. Knowing my background, they openly called me an orphan. The taunt opened up old wounds, making me timid and unwilling to fight back against their bullying. But they escalated, trying to steal my living expenses. That money was from Clara. It was more important than my own life. I wasn't giving it to them. That time I fought back. The result was 7 or 8 of them beating me senseless. Smash! A beer bottle shattered against my head. Blood streamed down my face, blurring my vision. The world started to spin. Through the haze, I saw a slender figure running toward me. It was Clara. She was swinging a tire iron, driving the bastards away from me. Afterward, Clara went straight to the university administration and demanded the students be punished. She wouldn't let it go, even calling a local news station to get reporters involved. The university, fearing a scandal, expelled the students who'd assaulted me. After that, no one ever dared to bother me again. Clara told me I was born just the same as them, that I was no less of a person. From now on, no one gets to bully you. I swear it. When I first came to the Sterling house, I saw a hint of Clara in Isabel's face, and it threw my world off its axis. Now, the Sterlings own the land where Clara was buried. The thought of moving her grave became an urgent, burning need. I'd already found a perfect spot for her ashes, a niche in a respected local church that would cost $50,000. Unfortunately, I didn't even have $1,000 to my name. After a couple of idle days, Pops took me to a fight. It was in the basement of a warehouse. An underground match. I was confused. I thought you went straight. He shot me a glare. I don't have a license, do I? We gotta do a few of these on the down low. Once you make a name for yourself, the sponsors will come knocking. I just roll my eyes at him. I stepped into the ring. The bell rang. My opponent went down. A one-punch knockout. I went to collect my winnings from Pops. The bastard handed me $500. I was furious. We agreed on 20 grand a win. Are you trying to rip me off? Hell, you still owe me, he barked. It was for tuition for the Chilburn technique. He theatrically tapped a few numbers into a calculator and shoved it in my face. Should have called me master when you had the chance. Tuition, $19,500. I gave him a thumbs up. Fine, I'd pay it. Clara had raised me. Mistaking the Sterlings for family was a mistake I deeply regretted. From now on, I didn't want to be tied to anyone. In prison, I made a vow. The only person I would ever acknowledge was Clara. 500 was 500. The power was in my fists. The money would come. That night, after the fight, 6 burly men blocked my path in a dark alley. Leading them were Isabel and Julian. Julian wore a sadistic grin. Isabel, I want his legs broken. Isabel nodded, her face a cold mask. I promised Julian I would break one of your legs. After that, your debt to each other is settled. She pursed her lips, then added, but don't worry. I'll still marry you, even if you're a cripple. I'll take care of you. She said it while secretly watching my reaction. When she saw nothing, a flicker of light in her eyes died. Julian seethed with jealousy. I called Isabel a crazy bitch. Do us all a favor and marry this one-eyed freak. Just leave me the hell alone. Julian was livid. He ordered the men to attack, but the 6 of them only listened to Isabel, leaving him stomping his foot in frustration. Isabel's expression was complicated, but she finally gave them the signal. The men pulled out steel pipes, ready to swing. Just then, a group of figures rounded the corner, shouting as they ran toward us. At the head of the pack was Pops. I let out a sigh of relief. I'd sent him my location as soon as I saw trouble. The old man was sharp. The 2 groups faced off. Julian was dismissive. You think 4 guys and an old man can save you? I suggested he shake his head and look again. Julian tossed his bangs out of his eye. Holy shit, there are 8 of them. His face fell. Pops turned to me. What's the plan, kid? What do you think? I said. Wham! I lunged forward, landing a flying kick on one of the pipe-wielding thugs. In an instant, everyone piled in. The staff from a spa all had powerful hands. In a matter of moments, the 6 goons were on the ground. I had Julian pinned under my boot, his one good eye blazing with fury and helplessness. This is the last time, I warned him. You come after me again, and I'll send you to hell. Fuck you. Julian roared. You either kill me now, or I'm never going to stop. I looked up at Isabel. What do you say? Her face was pale. She knew she was on the losing end of this. This ends here. I promise Julian won't bother you again. And you'll stay away too? I added coldly. For a second, Isabel's body trembled. In the underground circuit, I was invincible. I won 7, 8 fights in a row, all of them by knockout. I started to make a name for myself in Riverton. Promoters and agents started calling, recruiting on behalf of wealthy backers. My life was suddenly filled with new faces, people with power, money, and women. The city I'd lived in for nearly 30 years was finally showing me its hidden, darker side. Chloe was always by my side. She wanted to break up with her boyfriend and be my woman exclusively. After all, I was supporting her, I didn't drink, and I was always gentle with her. Chloe often told me I was a man she could depend on, a man she wanted to marry. But I wasn't interested. I only told her I would teach her boyfriend a lesson for her, to help her get even. He hurt you, I'd said. He's going to pay for it. Hearing this, Chloe's eyes would glisten with tears. I was sure of it. She was madly in love with me. She was constantly trying new things to please me, afraid I'd get bored. Meeting you feels like a dream, she'd often say. I'm so happy. I'm afraid it's all going to disappear. I would comfort her, whispering in her ear. Maybe meeting me wasn't a dream. Maybe it was a curse. Following my plan, Chloe lured her boyfriend, Ryan, to one of my fights, convincing him to get in the ring with me. Years of heavy drinking had left him looking haggard, but his eyes still held a defiant arrogance. The moment he saw me, his face went white with shock. Leo, what the hell are you? I didn't give him time to think. One punch, and he was out cold. When Ryan woke up, he was in the grind, tied to a chair. I pulled Chloe into my arms, and she kissed me tenderly, right in front of him. The sight made Ryan's eyes burn with rage. Chloe, you cheating bitch. Slap. Chloe walked up to him and slapped him hard across the face. She admitted everything. I've been Leo's woman for a while now. What are you going to do about it? Ryan coughed up a mouthful of blood, his face a portrait of despair. You whore. I curse you. I hope you die a miserable death. I was with you for years, Chloe screamed back. And what did I get? Nothing but beatings. You're the one who deserves to die. Baby, I said softly, handing her a steel shovel. Why don't we cripple him? I'm afraid he might actually try to hurt you. Thinking of all the abuse she'd suffered, Chloe's face hardened. She took the shovel and brought it down on Ryan's limbs. Thud, thud, thud. With his arms and legs broken, Ryan could only wail. Chloe, you're heartless. You're a monster, a slut. I steadied Chloe's trembling hands, whispering in her ear. See? He's not going to let you go. Why don't you make him disappear for good? Chloe froze, hesitating. He's crippled. He can't hurt me now. But he has a family, friends. They'll never stop harassing you, I murmured. And most importantly, I don't want to lose you. That was the key. It was like opening Pandora's box. A murderous glint appeared in Chloe's eyes. Another sickening thud. Ryan stopped breathing. Chloe collapsed against me, her body limp. Leo, I did it. For us. For our future. I praised her, telling her she did a great job. Then I called the police. With the silent security footage I provided, Chloe's guilt was undeniable. The night before her trial, she demanded to see me, threatening to kill herself if she couldn't. I granted her wish. In the holding cell, she looked at me, her face a canvas of confusion. She couldn't understand why I'd done this to her. Do you remember Clara? I asked. The woman at the food truck that night? Chloe's eyes widened in recognition. It was you. A moment of shock turned into a bitter laugh. I knew you looked familiar. That night, years ago, was just like this one. Ryan Chloe, and their friend were eating at a late-night food truck when they saw Clara. Ryan, still bitter about being expelled for bullying me, convinced 3 of his friends to go after her. They were delinquents with no fear of consequences. 2 of them held Clara's face against the hot grill while she screamed. The third kicked her repeatedly in the stomach. She lost a lot of blood. If a passerby hadn't called 911, she would have died right there. The 3 guys who attacked her went to prison. But Ryan and Chloe got off with a civil penalty. Chloe looked lost, but Ryan and I never touched her. I understood what she meant, but I didn't care. If you 2 hadn't egged them on, she wouldn't have died later from her injuries. This is your karma. She still had one last question, but I answered it before she could ask. I never loved you. Chloe was sentenced to life with the possibility of parole. She thought her life was over, but she was still young. She had a chance to get out one day, but I wouldn't give her that chance. I bought a niche for Clara in the memorial wall of the best church in Riverton. I didn't want to bury her in the ground, because I was afraid that after I died, there would be no one left to visit her grave. In the church, there would be constant prayers and offerings, a fitting eternal home for orphans like us. But when I brought a crew to the grind to exhume her remains, I found the wooden cross splintered and the ground dug up. Clara's urn was gone. In that instant, a chilling dread washed over me. After checking traffic camera footage from the area, I saw it. Julian had been to the grind, and I knew instantly it was Megan's idea. Back when I first lived with the Sterlings, I went to the grind every month to visit Clara's grave. Megan was the only one who knew. She'd even had my past investigated, so she knew exactly how much Clara meant to me. At the time, she'd sneered at me. The lower classes are always so sentimental. It proves what you are. I'll never forget the look of contempt on her face. When she'd asked me to come home, she had hinted at using Clara's grave to control me. That bitch. Using the dead as a bargaining chip, over and over. She had to die. I stormed into the Sterling Corporation headquarters and burst into the CEO's office. Megan, where are Clara's ashes? Ms. Sterling. He forced his way in. I couldn't stop him. I'll call security right now, my sister's assistant stammered, rushing in behind me. Megan closed the file she was reading. She wasn't surprised to see me. It was as if she had expected this. She dismissed her assistant and gestured for me to sit. As long as you do as Father asks, and marry Isabel, I'll tell you where they are. Using the dead for leverage. You're disgusting. She was unfazed. That makeshift grave was an embarrassment. I was just helping you move her to a better place. Consider it compensation for how we treated you in the past. We may have neglected you, but Julian has paid a price for what happened. We should all just move on. If you put the family first from now on, Father and I will make sure you're taken care of, she said, her voice calm and persuasive, hoping I'd abandon my convictions and be a good little son. Megan thought she had me under her thumb, but I was already past the point of reason. Smack. I threw my phone down on the desk in front of her. The screen was playing a video. It showed Julian standing in front of a dumpster, opening a small black box, and scattering a cloud of white dust into the trash. That was Clara's urn, I said, my eyes bloodshot. I lunged forward and wrapped my hand around Megan's throat. All of you Sterlings, you all deserve to die. I swear on my life. I hissed. I will send every single one of you to hell. Megan's lips trembled uncontrollably, the color draining from her face. I didn't know he would do that. I just wanted to do something for you, really. I meant no harm. I let go. She slumped to the floor like a discarded rag. After I left, a traumatized Megan went home. When Robert found out what had happened, he was enraged. He summoned Julian and unleashed his fury. You foolish boy. Have you no respect for the dead? How could you do such a thing? Julian hadn't expected to be found out so quickly. He stood there dumbfounded. Just then, Eleanor walked in and immediately moved to shield Julian. After hearing the story, she turned on Robert. That little monster blinded Julian, and he has yet to apologize. Julian was just getting revenge. It's perfectly reasonable. Furious at his wife's blatant favoritism, Robert's face grew red. Leo is your son too, Eleanor. Have you lost your mind? You're the one who's lost his mind, she shot back. He's already declared war on us, and you still think of that animal as your son? After more than 20 years, all of Eleanor's longing for her lost child had been poured into her adopted son. To her, Julian was the young Leo she'd lost. But Robert cared more about bloodlines. Or rather, he cared about profit. The Vance family already looked down on Julian's status as an adopted son. They certainly wouldn't approve of him now that he was blind in one eye. And besides, he noticed a certain spark in Isabel's eyes when she looked at Leo. Now, Robert Sterling was filled with a deep regret. He should never have underestimated his real son. I went to Pops and told him I needed his help to destroy the Sterling family. I'll carry on your legacy, I told him. If I do it right, people will be bowing to your portrait for generations. Pops jumped to his feet. Don't jinx me, you little punk. I'm only 63, in the prime of my life. Stop talking nonsense. But I could tell the words had hit their mark. The idea of a legacy of his story being told for years to come in Riverton made his eyes light up. He immediately started talking about buying a new keyboard to write his memoirs. Still, he tried to caution me. Don't do something you'll regret, kid. They're still your family. What they did, it wasn't a death sentence. No, I said, they have to die. And my family, they've been gone for a long time. He saw the resolve in my eyes and gave a slow nod. In addition to Pop's underground network, I secured the backing of several of Riverton's most powerful business magnates. The price was my future participation in fixed fights, whenever they needed to ensure a certain outcome. Taking down the Sterlings is easy enough, one of the tycoons said after hearing my plan. Why make it so complicated? Because, I told them, I don't just want to take them down. I want to send every last one of them to hell. The tycoon just shrugged. You're one twisted son of a bitch, kid. I contacted Robert Sterling and told him I was ready to come back to the family and marry Isabel. My one condition, Julian had to go. Robert agreed, promising to smooth things over with Eleanor. He then secretly sent Julian to live at their old family estate in the countryside. He assumed that once the marriage solidified the merger, the Sterling Empire would grow even stronger. He believed that when I saw the true power of the family, I would naturally fall in line. Who wouldn't want a life of luxury? Who wouldn't want to be one of the elite? We shared the same blood. Surely I would come to understand his perspective. He had no idea this was the beginning of his nightmare. Hearing that I'd had a change of heart, the normally aloof Isabel actually came to see me. I'm glad you came to your senses, she said, offering a rare explanation. I've always seen Julian as family, like a brother. There was never anything romantic between us. She was trying to justify her past actions, how she'd always sided with the adopted son, even trying to send me to prison for him. I could see the affection for me in her eyes now, and I felt a wave of disgust. Some people are just like that. They don't appreciate what they have until it's gone, and then they come crawling back. Pathetic. Thinking of all the times Isabel had wronged me, I knew she couldn't be spared. I made up an excuse to take her out to dinner. Over a candlelit meal, I slipped a drug in her wine. After a few glasses, she was unconscious. I took her to an abandoned warehouse. The place was derelict, empty except for a single large mattress in the center of the floor. In the four corners of the room, however, more than a dozen hidden cameras were recording. I threw Isabel onto the mattress and went upstairs to a small office. Inside, 7 or 8 men in black suits were waiting. A man with long hair was on the floor, mumbling incoherently, his eyes glazed over, as if he were high. Julian, I said, nudging his chin up with the toe of my boot. Remember me? I spit on his face. I'd had him snatched from the countryside and pumped full of drugs. He was completely out of his mind. It was time to begin. One of the men in black clipped a dog leash to a collar around Julian's neck and led him downstairs. The moment he saw Isabel's naked body, his drugged-out lust ignited. He lunged at her like a rabid animal, his hands clamping down on her collarbones as if he wanted to tear her apart. At the same time, a different drug I'd given Isabel began to take effect. She started to respond to him, to welcome him. From the monitor in the office, I watched the whole disgusting spectacle unfold. It went on for 2 hours. In the days that followed, our families began preparing for the wedding. Isabel was in her element, ordering a custom-made gown, planning a honeymoon in Europe, throwing herself into the arrangements. I played my part, posing for engagement photos, getting fitted for a tuxedo. As we spent more time together, she began to open up, her attitude softening. I know this started as a business arrangement, she said one day, but you fit all my criteria for a husband. I hope our marriage can be based on love. We can build it. My parents had an arranged marriage, and they're happy. It was clear she was pinning all her hopes on our future together. On the day of the wedding, the ballroom was packed. The hotel valet line was dozens of Bentleys deep. It wasn't just friends and family of the Sterlings and the Vanis. It was a who's who of Riverton's elite. The two families were using the event as a show of force, paving the way for future market expansion. At noon, I walked Isabel down the aisle and onto the stage. As the officiant began, we stood, accepting the congratulations of the crowd. Suddenly, a discordant voice cut through the room. Isabel, you can't marry him. Julian burst through the doors. Everyone recognized the Sterling's adopted son. A hush fell over the room. Are you insane? Get out of here, Isabel hissed, her face a mixture of shame and fury as Julian approached the stage. Julian, if you ruin this, I will never forgive you. No, Julian said, his jaw tight. If you marry Leo, you'll regret it. I'm the one who's right for you. You? I said with a light chuckle. A one-eyed cripple. Because, Julian declared, his voice ringing out, Isabel and I have already been together as husband and wife. The room erupted in gasps and murmurs. From the head table, Robert Sterling nearly fell out of his chair. He pointed a trembling finger at Julian. You're lying. Are you trying to destroy this family, you animal? It was the first time Robert had ever called Julian an animal. Perfect. He doesn't look like he's lying. Someone whispered from the crowd. So, the brothers are sharing a wife? Lucky girl. Well, Isabel is beautiful. Getting to have both of them? She's a modern-day empress. The foul jokes and snide comments spread like wildfire. Isabel's face went white. She slapped Julian hard across the face, her eyes filled with a murderous rage. Julian clutched his cheek, hesitating, the words he wanted to say trapped in his throat. I clapped him on the shoulder, a look of disappointment on my face. It's okay. Let me help you out. A giant screen descended from the ceiling. As the guests watched in confusion, I projected the video I had so carefully preserved. A few seconds later, screams erupted from the women in the audience. Some covered their eyes, but the graphic sounds from the speakers were unavoidable, forcing them to peek through their fingers. Most of the men, however, watched with rapt attention, as if studying a new technique. No, that's a deep fake. That's not me. Isabel shrieked, her voice raw. Turn it off. Don't look. But the venue was staffed by my people. The Vance family's bodyguards had been neutralized long ago. No one listened to her. She tore at her hair, collapsing into a heap among her bridesmaids, sobbing hysterically. With a loud thud, Isabel's father collapsed, having fainted from shock. Her mother rushed to his side, frantic and helpless. The Sterlings were paralyzed with shame. Robert's face was beet red as he turned on me. You bastard. Are you so bent on revenge that you destroy your own reputation too? To drag them all down to hell, I would gladly sacrifice my life, let alone my reputation. Robert Sterling would never understand that from the day they desecrated Clara's memory, it was a war to the death. The scandal was the nail in the coffin. The Sterling and Vance families were publicly crucified. Business rivals immediately pounced, and negative stories flooded the internet. The reports focused on the quality of Sterling products, complete with official-looking lab results claiming some of their best-selling items contain carcinogens. Normally, Robert would have lawyered up and fought back. But this time, Riverton's most powerful tycoons moved in concert, cutting off all of the Sterling suppliers and freezing them out of the market. Regulatory agencies sent inspectors to seize their inventory for testing. Robert knew it was over. He unleashed all his fury on Julian, whipping him with a leather belt until the boy was crying and begging for mercy on the floor. Eleanor couldn't bear to watch and threw herself in front of Julian to protect him. Robert, it's done. Beating him to death won't change anything. It was that monster, Leo. He's the one who tricked our Julian. At that moment, Julian pulled out a fruit knife he'd hidden and lunged from behind Eleanor. The blade plunged into Robert's chest, sinking all the way to the hilt. Amid Eleanor's piercing screams, Robert Sterling died, his eyes wide with disbelief, that final expression of shock frozen on his face forever. Julian fled after murdering his adoptive father. Eleanor fainted and was hospitalized. The Sterling Empire was on the verge of complete collapse. The other tycoons moved in to carve up the remains of the company, and all its employees were laid off. Megan Sterling, once a rising star in the business world, was now a pariah. The city's power brokers had put out the word. Anyone who hired her would be an enemy, and they would be destroyed. No one dared to cross them. Megan finally understood. Someone was intentionally orchestrating their ruin. She had assumed my only connection was to Pops and his small-time underground network. She never imagined that the most powerful men in Riverton were helping me get my revenge. As Megan desperately tried to figure a way out of her predicament, I was preparing to deliver the final blow. The warehouse. When we met again, Megan was a different person. Her former arrogance was gone, replaced by nervous anxiety. Leo, I was wrong. I'm so sorry. Julian is a monster. He killed Dad. He won't get away with it. You're my only brother now. I'm begging you. Please give me a chance to make it up to you. If she could have brought back Clara's ashes, I might have considered stopping, but it was too late for that. I pulled out my phone and played another video for her. It showed several men digging up Robert Sterling's fresh grave, taking the urn and tossing it into the back of a garbage truck. An eye for an eye. Now, it was the Sterling's turn. Megan broke down, screaming at me. He was your father, Leo. Your own father. How could you? You'll regret this, Leo. I swear to God. You will regret this, she shrieked, trying desperately to appeal to some sliver of familial sentiment she thought I might still have. She failed. With a soft thud, Megan fell to her knees before me. Please, I'm begging you. Tell me where that garbage truck went. A garbage truck? It went to the dump, of course. I helped her to her feet and had my men bring over a small table. You know, I said gently, and all the time I was home, we never had a meal alone, just the two of us. No time like the present. You won't refuse me, will you, big sister? Megan stared at me, dumbfounded. She had no appetite. But Dad's ashes. We'll talk after we eat, I said, cutting her off. I had a chef bring out a single bowl of fried rice. I pointed to it. Your favorite. I had a chef flown in from out of state just to make it for you. This bowl would cost $500 in a fancy restaurant. The colorful rice smelled incredibly fragrant. Megan gave a weak, bitter smile. You don't have to do this. 15 minutes later, she had forced down every last bite. Was it good? I asked. Yes, she nodded. It was the best I've ever had. Now, can you please tell me where Dad's ashes are? She was convinced this was just another one of my cruel games, a way to force her to have a meal with me. She probably thought I was just acting out, desperate for some kind of family connection. A look of pity crossed her face. Leo, you don't have to be this way. I promise from now on, I'll be a good sister to you. I'll make up for all the lost years. No need for that, I said, a cruel smile spreading across my face as I told her the truth. The secret ingredient that makes it so delicious? It's the ashes. They give the rice a unique texture. Megan's eyes went wide, her heart seizing as if pierced by 1,000 needles. When she realized I wasn't joking, she began to vomit violently, shoving her fingers down her throat to get it all out. You're an animal, she screamed between heaves. A heartless, inhuman animal. I ignored her insults. They say a tiger won't eat its own cubs, but you just ate your own father. Megan, you're the real animal here. That last sentence was a hammer blow that shattered what little was left of her sanity. After that day, no one ever saw Megan Sterling again. The Sterling mansion. Now, it was Eleanor's turn for regret. The son she doted on had murdered her husband. Her daughter was missing. Her biological son wanted nothing to do with her. She was all alone in the cavernous house. She started coming to the spa, begging for my forgiveness. Son, please look at me. I was wrong. I'm so sorry. I ignored her. I was busy tracking down the details of a recent, horrific traffic accident and pressuring the Vance family to offer up Isabel to take the blame. After what happened to the Sterlings, they didn't dare refuse. The accident was the worst Riverton had seen in years. 3 dead, 5 injured, and the driver had fled the scene. Isabel was arrested and nearly got the death penalty. In the end, the Vances paid a massive settlement to the victims' families in exchange for their forgiveness, and her sentence was reduced to 13 years. I visited her once as her husband. The wedding had been a fiasco, but we were legally married, our union protected by law. If you happen to die in here, I told her casually, I might just inherit the Vance fortune. She showed no emotion, simply stating that I was a heartless, vicious monster. I regret it, Leo, she said, her voice flat. I regret ever crossing you. On that, we could agree. No one gets to bully me. Julian, now a fugitive, was living like a cockroach in the shadows, constantly looking over his shoulder. His paranoia didn't last long. I had him captured and taken to a remote cabin deep in the woods. Inside the cabin was a familiar face, Megan. I broke both of their legs to ensure they couldn't escape, then cut off their food and water supply. Julian immediately started begging, banging his head on the floor. Leo, brother, please. Let me go. I'll disappear. I swear, you'll never see me again. I patted his head like he was a dog, my voice as cold as the grave. Clara's ashes are gone. If I let you live, she'd never forgive me. Be a better person in your next life. I welded the doors and windows shut and settled in to watch their final, depraved performance. At first, they screamed and blamed each other until their throats were raw. When the thirst became unbearable, they drank their own urine. When the hunger set in, they ate spiders, roaches, anything that moved. Finally, they turned on each other. Megan, at least, was still somewhat attractive, which made it easier for Julian to stomach. But when it was his turn to provide, the meal was much less palatable. On the 17th day, Megan died. In his final desperate moments, half-mad Julian committed the ultimate taboo, carving flesh from her body and drinking her blood. It only bought him 2 more days. Eleanor came to find me again. This time, I showed her the video of Megan's final days. When she saw that her daughter hadn't even been left with a complete body, Eleanor collapsed, weeping and pounding her chest. She cursed Julian with the most vile words imaginable. wishing him a painful death from a bolt of lightning. He left to her. For all her grief, she still didn't have the courage to end her own life. A truly selfish woman to the very end. I looked up at the sky. The clouds seemed to form the shape of Clara's face, smiling down at me. I shouted up at her, my voice full of triumph. I did it, Clara. Nobody can ever bully me again. Epilogue. Chloe's perspective. My first day in here, some bitch tried to get me to pick up the soap. I got hemorrhoids that night. Later, I made a friend. Her name was Isabel. The name Leo Sterling was a topic we never ran out of. She was his wife in name. I was his wife in practice. In a twisted way, that made us sisters. I started studying law in the prison library. I learned I had a chance at parole. I'd be middle-aged by then, but not old. I'd have a chance for revenge. Leo, you just wait for me. Huh. But one day, Isabel got a call. Her parents were in danger. Leo was coming for them. No, absolutely not. She started muttering over and over again, like a crazy person. That night, in the dark of our cell, a sharpened toothbrush pierced my throat. As my life drained away, the last thing I saw was a pair of blood-red eyes. Isabel had killed me. The end.